Watch. In earlier parts, the aircraft vanished in plain sight. 7 hours in the sky, no contact, no signal. Now comes the strangest chapter. Children's backpacks wash ashore, but the children do not. Debris appears on beaches thousands of kilometers away, but in 10 years, not a single body is found. The captain had rehearsed this route on a simulator. The flight looked planned, every turn, every minute. But why would he do it? And did he do it at all? The official report explains nothing. No black boxes, no bodies. The mystery is officially still a mystery. And if the truth has been on the ocean floor all this time, why hasn't anyone brought it up? At Beijing's Lido Hotel, time stopped on March 8, 2014. Families of the 154 Chinese passengers gathered there. Each day became a repeat of the last. Waiting, hope, despair. The hotel ballroom turned into the site of daily briefings by the airline. Relatives came each morning, hungry for good news. The news was always the same. The search continues. The plane is not found. Li Erlong lost his son, Li Yanlin, a successful artist on his way to an exhibition in Kuala Lumpur. "I won't believe he is gone until I see his body," the elderly father repeated every day. Dai Shuqin looked for her daughter, Dai Qing, and son-in-law, Yu Weidong, who had set off on their honeymoon. "They dreamed of this trip," she cried. "They bought new clothes, planned the route. It can't end like this." For many families, the most agonizing puzzle was the phones that kept ringing for days after the aircraft disappeared. When relatives dialed, they heard long ringtones, as if the subscriber was out of range, but the phone still powered on. In most crashes, calls go straight to unavailable. Wang Zhenwei called his son, Wang Mahe, every hour. "The phone rings, that means he is alive," he shouted at airline staff. "Why can't you trace the signal and find him?" Technicians offered a blunt explanation. Networks can produce misleading ringback tones for days after a device powers off, but to desperate parents, those tones sounded like hope. Some families said they heard short connections, a second or two of silence, as if someone picked up but could not speak. Engineers blamed network glitches. The families believed their loved ones were trying to reach them. The airline was unprepared for this. It had never faced a total disappearance and had no playbook for supporting families inside a fog of uncertainty. Daily briefings turned into confrontations. Company representatives repeated the script. "The search continues. We're doing everything possible. We'll update you as soon as we know more." Families demanded specifics. Where exactly are teams looking? What technology is being used? Why is nothing being found? How much longer will this limbo last? "They're hiding the truth from us," cried Zhang Huifen, who lost her husband. "They know what happened and refuse to say." In the vacuum of trust, conspiracy theories flourished. Families suspected that governments, Malaysia, China, even the United States, were concealing crucial information about the flight's fate. At the Lido, rituals of waiting took shape. Each morning, relatives gathered in the lobby, trading rumors and fragments from the internet, hoping the next whisper would finally be the one that breaks the silence. Groups were formed in messaging apps, where families exchanged information, supported one another, and planned collective actions. Strangers, united by tragedy, quickly became close friends. Some families brought photographs of their missing loved ones and arranged them in the conference hall. What emerged was an improvised memorial, faces of people whose fate remained unknown. Children drew pictures for their missing parents. Wives wrote letters to their husbands. Parents spoke to the photographs of their sons and daughters, as if their words could somehow be heard. "I cook his favorite meal every day," said Chen Lilin about her missing husband. "When he comes home, everything must feel just the way it used to." The Chinese government placed heavy diplomatic pressure on Malaysia, demanding more active search efforts and full transparency in the investigation. The families of the passengers became an instrument of political leverage. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang personally met with the families and promised that every possible state resource would be used to find the missing. Warships and satellites were dispatched to assist in the search area, but diplomatic efforts met resistance from Malaysia's sovereignty. The investigation was carried out under Malaysian law, controlled strictly by Malaysian authorities. China could only demand, but not enforce. In Beijing, families staged protests outside the Malaysian embassy. They demanded an audience with the ambassador, the delivery of their petition to the government, and immediate acceleration of the search. "Our children are not political cards," shouted the demonstrators. "They are living people waiting to be saved." Chinese officials also arranged psychological assistance for the families. Counselors specializing in grief and trauma arrived at the Lido Hotel, but many relatives refused support. "Why would I need a psychologist? I need my son," one mother said bitterly. Accepting therapy felt like acknowledging loss, something the families were not yet ready to face. Experts pointed out the unique cruelty of the MH370 disaster. In most aviation tragedies, families move through the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and, finally, acceptance. But when there are no bodies, no graves, no ultimate proof of death, grief is trapped at the very first stage. Acceptance becomes impossible because hope refuses to die. The internet became the breeding ground of endless rumors and conspiracy theories. Each day brought new evidence that the passengers could still be alive. Satellite images allegedly showing people stranded on a remote island. Reports of mysterious radio signals containing cries for help, eyewitnesses claiming they had seen the plane in distant parts of the world. Families clung to every rumor, desperate for anything to grasp. Time and again, investigations revealed these claims to be hoaxes or mistakes. Yet new stories appeared faster than old ones could be disproven. "We know most of it is lies," one relative admitted. "But what if, just once, something turns out to be true? We cannot ignore any possibility." For many families, financial hardship added to the suffering. Long stays in Beijing, hotel costs, legal fees, all of it demanded money. Malaysia Airlines provided compensation of $5,000 per passenger as initial assistance. But that was enough only for a few months of waiting. Some families returned home without answers. Others sold their belongings just to remain in Beijing and continue the fight for truth. "They think we will give up if we run out of money," said Liu Xiaoying, who had lost her son. "But I will look for him, even if it means living on the streets." Some families began sharing apartments, pooling their resources to save expenses. Grief united strangers more strongly than years of friendship ever could. In this atmosphere of endless uncertainty, many turned to religion, and even mysticism, for solace. Buddhist monks held prayer ceremonies for the missing. Taoist masters cast predictions about the future. Christian families prayed for a miracle. Muslim relatives recited the Quran, asking Allah for mercy. Even parents who had never believed in anything beyond science began, for the very first time, to seek help from higher powers. "If science cannot find them," one mother explained, "perhaps faith will." Fortune-tellers and self-proclaimed psychics crowded outside the Lido Hotel, offering their services. Some families, in desperation, turned to them, hoping for even the smallest revelation about the fate of their loved ones. As days blurred into weeks, and weeks into months, the atmosphere inside the hotel shifted. The initial panic softened into chronic anxiety. The sharp edge of grief dulled into a lingering ache. Some families slowly accepted reality and began the process of mourning. Others refused to surrender hope, insisting their loved ones would return. For the children, the uncertainty was unbearable. "Where is Mommy?" asked the 4-year-old daughter of one passenger. How could anyone explain to a child that her mother had simply vanished and nobody knew where? Some wives refused to remove their wedding rings. "I am still married," they said, "until someone proves otherwise." The relentless uncertainty bred anger, and with it, the search for someone to blame. Families filed lawsuits against Malaysia Airlines, the Malaysian government, and the aircraft manufacturer Boeing. Lawyers promised multi-million-dollar settlements, but money could not replace the missing. Court cases dragged on for years. "I don't want their money," one grieving mother declared. "I want my son. Alive or dead, I need to know what happened to him." The trauma fractured even the community of families. Those who began to accept the loss criticized others for clinging to hope. While some accused their peers of denial, others condemned the acceptance of tragedy as betrayal. The Lido Hotel became a symbol of humanity's desperate ability to hope against all odds. The families of MH370 showed the world what it means to love someone beyond the limits of logic. Their struggle led to changes in international aviation rules. Aircraft are now required to transmit location data every single minute. Search technologies have been strengthened and improved. Yet for these families, such progress offered little comfort. Their loved ones had fallen victim to failures in aviation safety. The cost of those lessons was measured in human lives. "We do not want any other families to go through what we endured," said one relative on the 10th anniversary of the tragedy. "But we also do not want our children to be forgotten." The ghosts of waiting still lived in their hearts, a haunting reminder of the 239 passengers who one morning left for Beijing but never arrived home. Flight MH370 became more than an aviation mystery. It became a story of human love refusing to surrender, even when confronted with the impossible. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the British company Inmarsat in London, engineers sifted through data that could change the course of the search for MH370. This satellite telecommunications provider held unique information about the final hours of the vanished jet. Geostationary satellite Inmarsat 3F1, fixed over the equator at 64 degrees east longitude, exchanged automatic electronic handshakes with the aircraft every hour. These signals did not reveal precise coordinates, but they confirmed that the plane's communication systems were still functioning. Even more astonishing was the discovery that these faint signals carried hidden clues no one had analyzed before. Through the Doppler effect, the shift in signal frequency caused by the movement of the source, engineers could extract subtle hints about the direction and speed of the aircraft. It was as if a ghostly voice had been whispering from space. For 7 silent hours, MH370 said nothing. Yet its satellite antenna continued to send faint technical pulses skyward, whispers that would become the key to unlocking the mystery. At Inmarsat, a team of mathematicians and engineers, led by Chris McLaughlin, worked day and night to analyze the Doppler shifts in frequency. It was one of the most complex tasks imaginable, reconstructing the flight path of a missing aircraft using nothing but indirect satellite data. Each electronic handshake revealed the distance between the plane and the satellite at a specific moment in time. When these points were connected, a possible trajectory began to emerge. The result was shocking. MH370 had flown steadily south for hours, not erratically, not in zigzags, but on a straight course, as though someone had set the autopilot and left it running. Mathematics does not lie, McLaughlin insisted. According to the calculations, the aircraft had ended up in the southern Indian Ocean. Every other possibility had been excluded by the data. But could such delicate calculations really be trusted? Critics pointed to the number of assumptions built into the equations and the approximations used in the models. The most dramatic detail concerned the final signal received at 8:11 in the morning. Unlike any before it, this was incomplete, cut short. Engineers interpreted it as a sign of sudden power loss on the aircraft. Perhaps the fuel had finally run out, the engines had stopped, and the auxiliary power unit had kept transmitting for only a few more minutes before shutting down as well. If correct, then at that moment MH370 became a powerless glider, 11,000 meters above the ocean. Without engines, the Boeing could have stayed aloft for as long as 20 minutes, potentially covering up to 200 kilometers. But in what direction? Did someone attempt a controlled ditching, or did the jet plunge into the ocean in a chaotic dive? The difference would define the size and scope of the search area. Some aviation experts suggested that an experienced pilot could have tried landing the aircraft on water, similar to Captain Sullenberger's Hudson River landing years earlier. But bringing a Boeing 777 down safely onto rough ocean waves was almost impossible. Using the satellite data, scientists constructed what came to be known as the seventh arc, a broad curved line showing where the plane could have been when that final handshake occurred. The arc stretched for thousands of kilometers from Central Asia down to the far southern Indian Ocean. Yet the northern section crossed heavily monitored airspace. No country's radar had detected the passage of a large jetliner. The conclusion was that MH370 had to be somewhere in the remote southern section. Computer models tested scenario after scenario, factoring in wind speed, fuel consumption, and autopilot behavior. Again and again, the data pointed to an area 2,000 kilometers west of Australia, a vast expanse of ocean the size of Europe. The new search zone was defined, but within that area, finding even a single piece of wreckage was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Not everyone trusted these mathematical breakthroughs. Critics warned that the Doppler effect could be distorted by weather conditions, solar activity, or quirks in the satellite's hardware. Accuracy depended entirely on adjustments and corrections applied to the data. "We are trying to find a plane using a mathematical model, not direct evidence," cautioned one aviation expert. And what if the model is wrong? The families in particular remained skeptical. How could the fate of 239 people rest only on equations and computer models? "Show us the wreckage, show us the bodies, then we will believe," they demanded. For them, mathematics could never replace physical proof. On March 24, 2014, Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak made a historic televised announcement based on the Inmarsat analysis. According to new satellite data and the conclusions of the UK Air Accidents Investigation Branch, we can state that flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean, he declared. His words fell like a death sentence on the hopes of the waiting families. For the first time, it was officially declared that everyone on board had perished. The reaction was immediate and anguished. At the Lido Hotel in Beijing, families screamed, sobbed, and demanded proof. How could their loved ones be declared dead without a single body, without a single piece of wreckage, on nothing more than mathematical theories? "This is not evidence, this is only assumption," cried one mother. "Where is the plane? Where are our children? Show us." The Inmarsat analysis marked the first time in history that the presumed resting place of a missing aircraft was determined entirely through satellite handshakes. It was a revolutionary breakthrough in search technology, but a revolution built on untested methods. Never before had the Doppler effect been used to track an airplane. There was no independent verification of its accuracy. Inmarsat released the satellite data free of charge, but refused to disclose the details of its analytical algorithms. Commercial secrecy, company representatives explained. That secrecy fueled conspiracy theories. Critics claimed the numbers could have been fabricated to hide the plane's true location. Why should we trust a company that refuses to reveal its methods? Skeptics asked. Maybe, they suggested, the data was being used simply to steer the search effort toward a convenient direction. Despite the doubt, the international community accepted Inmarsat's conclusions as the best available lead in the search for MH370. Preparations began for operations in the far southern Indian Ocean. Australia assumed responsibility for coordination. Its Rescue Coordination Center in Canberra became mission headquarters for one of the most remote operations ever attempted. The search zone lay 2,000 kilometers from the nearest landmass. There, the ocean plunged to depths of 4,000 meters. Winter storms loomed on the horizon as the southern hemisphere slid into its coldest season. If the satellite calculations were correct, the wreckage of MH370 rested in pitch-dark waters, crushed under 400 atmospheres of pressure. A voice from space had pointed the way into the abyss, but was it a true prophet or a cruel deception? Only a search of the icy ocean could provide the answer. By late March of 2014, the largest search and rescue mission in aviation history was underway. 26 countries committed ships, aircraft, and advanced technology to the campaign. Australia dispatched the warships Success and Ocean Shield equipped with sonar systems. China sent the icebreaker Xuelong and the naval vessel Kunlun-shan. The United Kingdom contributed the nuclear submarine HMS Tireless. Malaysia deployed the KD Lakir with divers on board. Japan sent the large patrol ship Tsugaru. Even distant New Zealand committed a P-3 Orion patrol plane. The mobilization was unprecedented, not seen on this scale since the Second World War. Political rivalries faded before the weight of human tragedy. The adversary now was not a hostile army, but the endless ocean itself, reluctant to surrender its secrets. Air searches launched daily from Australia's Pearce Air Base, 3 to 12 hours of flying just to reach the suspected crash zone. Up to a dozen aircraft from multiple nations took to the skies each day. Australian P-3C Orions with powerful radars scanned the waves in strips several kilometers wide. Japanese P-3C Orions used infrared sensors, searching for unusual thermal signatures. America's most advanced Poseidon patrol aircraft swept across the surface, detecting metallic fragments. Even China's aging Il-76s stretched their range to the limit, barely reaching the zone before turning back. Flights often lasted 10 hours or more. Pilots and observers stared for hours at the monotonous ocean below, straining to notice anything unusual. But the sea remained empty, endless swell, drifting clouds, an occasional whale or pod of dolphins, yet no trace of the missing jet. Technology fought against nature with everything available. High-resolution satellites photographed the ocean surface every few hours, their images processed by computers to highlight suspicious objects. Automatic ship identification systems tracked every vessel in the area. Hydrophones listened for sounds beneath the waves. Magnetometers searched for metallic anomalies. Still, the ocean resisted. Its vastness, its storms, and its silence kept the truth hidden. Storms raised waves over 10 meters high, making visual searches nearly impossible. Heavy cloud cover often blocked the ocean from satellite eyes. Strong currents kept shifting floating debris across vast distances. An object spotted in the morning could drift dozens of kilometers away by evening. "We are hunting for a needle in a haystack the size of a continent," one search coordinator remarked, "and the haystack keeps moving." Every day brought fresh reports of possible wreckage. Australian satellites detected 2 large objects in the ocean. French satellites later identified 122 smaller items. Chinese satellites revealed dozens more. Search vessels rushed to the coordinates only to find ocean trash, plastic containers, broken fishing nets, and debris from past shipwrecks, even remnants washed into the sea by the Japanese tsunami. The cruelest blow came on March 28th. The Chinese vessel Hijacking pulled from the waves a white fragment that, from a distance, resembled part of an aircraft fuselage. The world froze in anticipation, but up close, the discovery proved to be nothing more than maritime refuse. Another false hope dissolved into bitter disappointment. "The ocean is playing tricks on us," one ship captain said. "It shows us what we long to see, but it is always a mirage." The critical task was locating the aircraft's black boxes, the flight recorders that could reveal what truly happened in the final hours of MH370. Each recorder carried an underwater beacon designed to transmit acoustic signals for 30 days at a frequency of 37.5 kilohertz, specifically chosen to cut through seawater with minimal interference. Ships armed with hydroacoustic technology scoured the ocean, listening for faint signals rising from the depths. On April 5th, the Chinese vessel Hijacking reported detecting possible signals at the beacon frequency. For a moment, the world held its breath. Had the black boxes finally been found? But the signals proved too weak and irregular to be authentic. The hope evaporated once again, and with each fading day, the odds diminished. After 30 days, the recorder's batteries would fall silent forever. Then, on April 7th, 1 month after the plane's disappearance, the Australian ship Ocean Shield detected 2 separate signals at precisely the correct frequency. One signal lasted over 2 hours, another for 13 minutes. It was the most promising discovery of the entire search. Coordinates were classified to keep opportunistic vessels away. On April 8th, Ocean Shield picked up additional transmissions in the same area. This time the signal endured for 5 minutes and 27 seconds. The acoustic pattern matched what investigators expected from the aircraft beacons. And then, silence. The vast ocean swallowed its secrets once again. No further signals were ever detected. When the acoustic search yielded nothing, attention shifted to technology beneath the waves. The autonomous submersible Bluefin 21 was deployed to scan the seafloor where the last signals had been heard. The robot could dive as deep as 4,500 meters and survey the seabed with side-scan sonar. Each dive lasted 16 hours and mapped 40 square kilometers. The first results, however, brought only disappointment. The ocean floor revealed nothing. On the ocean floor, investigators found nothing but geological formations, underwater ridges, canyons, and fields of stone. No trace of the missing plane. The Bluefin operated under brutal conditions. At depths of 4 kilometers, the pressure was 400 times that of the surface. The slightest malfunction could destroy the expensive submersible. More than once, the robot lost connection with its mothership and had to surface automatically. Each failure meant the loss of precious time. Coordinating such an immense operation demanded unprecedented international teamwork. Inside the command center in Canberra, representatives from nearly 20 countries gathered. Language barriers, conflicting technical standards, even clashing national ambitions all complicated the mission. Chinese and American ships ran on different communication protocols. Japanese and European aircraft flew at different altitudes. Slowly, however, the team adapted. Tragedy forged unity. We all want the same thing: find the plane and give answers to the families, the Australian coordinator said. Nationality meant nothing when the stakes were measured in human lives. By the end of April, the cost of the operation was nearing $50 million. Each day of searching consumed another million. Australia spent $200,000 daily on aircraft fuel. China bore $150,000 in ship operations. The United States carried $300,000 in submarine equipment. Such figures could not be sustained forever. Parliaments back home began to ask, how long should nations spend fortunes chasing a ghost? Would the money not be better used preventing the next disaster? But the families begged relentlessly. Our loved ones have no price, they pleaded. You must keep searching until you find them. By June 2014, it was clear that MH370 would not be found quickly. The search had shifted into a long-term campaign. The original survey zone of 60,000 square kilometers had been scoured with no success. Experts doubled the area to 120,000 square kilometers, a region the size of Greece, buried beneath 4 kilometers of water. Mapping every corner would take years and hundreds of millions of dollars. As the world's attention drifted to other headlines, the mystery slipped from the front pages. But in the depths of the Indian Ocean, the struggle continued, a colossal contest between human determination and nature's cold indifference. The largest search in aviation history pressed on, but the sea kept its silence. Then, on July 29, 2015, hope returned. Johnny Big, a resident of Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean, was clearing storm debris from the shoreline. The island often caught flotsam drifting in on the currents. But that day, Big discovered something different. A large fragment of an aircraft wing about 2 meters long. On the metal were serial numbers, and along the edges the marks of fire and scorching. Big took photographs and posted them online. Within hours, the images had raced around the world. Could this be it? A piece of MH370 at last? Reunion Island lay 4,000 kilometers from the suspected crash site, but ocean currents could easily have carried wreckage there over the course of 17 months. Aviation experts studied the photographs and quickly reached a conclusion. This was a flaperon, part of the wing of a Boeing 777, and no Boeing of that type had ever been lost in the Indian Ocean except for MH370. The world held its breath. Had the ocean finally surrendered a piece of its secret? The fragment was transported to Toulouse, France, to the laboratories of the DG Tech Institute, among the most respected aviation authorities in the world. There, engineers examined every square centimeter, serial numbers, manufacturing stamps, microscopic traces of wear. The work was painstaking and exact. On September 3rd came the confirmation everyone awaited. The flaperon belonged to the plane with registration 9 Mike Romeo Oscar, flight MH370. For the families, it was the first physical proof of catastrophe. Dreams of a secret landing on some hidden island could no longer hold. The plane had been destroyed. "Now we know for certain that our loved ones are dead," one mother said. "But where is the rest of the aircraft? Where are the bodies of our children?" Detailed analysis of the flaperon yielded precious insight into the final moments of MH370. The pattern of fractures indicated a high-speed impact with the water. The edges of the metal had torn away, violently ripped, not cut, suggesting the wing broke on impact, not in an explosion or mid-air fire. Marine organisms clung to its surface. Shells and algae built up over many months underwater. Their age fit a timeline of roughly 17 months adrift. Yet one mystery remained. There were no burn marks across most of the fragment. Only the edges showed scorching, which experts suggested could have been caused by friction against the ocean surface at high speed. These findings refuted theories of an onboard fire or explosion. Evidence suggested the plane had reached the ocean intact before a violent impact destroyed it. The discovery on Réunion reignited the investigation. If one fragment had washed ashore, surely others would too. Authorities across the Indian Ocean and along Africa's coastlines urged locals to search beaches carefully after storms. Posters were distributed, showing diagrams of Boeing 777 components. Thus began what investigators called the debris hunt. Each object found was photographed, logged, and analyzed. Most turned out to be false alarms, scraps from other aircraft, remains of ships, even pieces of plastic furniture. But slowly, true fragments began to emerge. In February 2016, American researcher Blaine Gibson found a piece of metal washed up on the Mozambique coast. It bore English language markings. Testing confirmed it was part of an MH370 horizontal stabilizer. In March, another fragment appeared nearby. This time, a panel of fuselage plating still bearing the logo of Malaysian Airlines. In May, a section of engine cowling. In June, interior cabin parts. All were found along the eastern shores of Africa, carried there by the powerful South Equatorial Current. Drift simulations confirmed that Wreckage could indeed have traveled from the crash zone to Africa within 2 years. Each discovery sparked a painful duality for the families: anguish at the proof of death, and a faint relief that the mystery was, piece by piece, unraveling. "At least now," said the father of one passenger, "we know they are not suffering on some deserted island. But why? Why can we not find their bodies?" In June 2016, the waves began delivering something even more haunting than aircraft fragments. On the beaches of Tanzania, personal items belonging to passengers of MH370 appeared, a wallet filled with credit cards from a Chinese passenger, a backpack with identification papers from a Malaysian tourist. These discoveries struck the families harder than twisted metal ever could. Aircraft parts were mechanical things, but personal belongings carried the warmth of human hands, the memories of living people. One of the most heartbreaking finds was a child's backpack, still holding its contents inside. It had belonged to 7-year-old Ivan Mokum, who was traveling with his parents on holiday to Malaysia. The boy's father recognized it immediately by a small patch sewn on lovingly by his mother. This was his favorite backpack, Wan Jinwei wept, holding the seawater-soaked bag close. He said his toys lived in there, his friends. Inside were plastic figurines, children's books, even a packet of biscuits, fragments of an interrupted childhood that the ocean had failed to erase. By the end of 2016, 33 aircraft fragments had been recovered. 18 were officially confirmed as belonging to MH370. Together, they began to assemble a grim picture of the final moments. The evidence suggested a violent impact with the sea at nearly 800 kilometers per hour. The aircraft had not glided down. It had plunged, nose first, into the water. The fuselage disintegrated instantly into thousands of pieces. Lightweight materials drifted, carried across the ocean, while heavier sections sank at once. Importantly, investigators found no sign of fire or explosives. The plane had not been shot down or destroyed mid-air. It had simply fallen. Experts concluded it was most likely an uncontrolled descent, perhaps with no pilot at the controls. By 2017, Madagascar had become a major site of discovery. Local fishermen repeatedly pulled plane fragments from their nets or stumbled upon them on the beaches. The largest was a fuselage section 1.5 meters long, with passenger windows still visible. Traces of cabin lining remained inside, seat parts, wall panels, fragments of overhead bins. Analysts determined it had come from the central cabin, where many of the 239 souls on board had been seated. Madagascar also yielded wheel components, wing fragments, pieces of the tail structure. Piece by piece, the mosaic of tragedy continued to expand. The island's residents even joined the search effort, checking coastlines after storms. At one point, the government offered rewards for the discovery of wreckage, but families were left tormented by one question above all. Where were the bodies? Dozens of airplane parts, personal possessions, yet not a single human remain. Specialists gave somber explanations. The impact with the water at 800 kilometers per hour left almost no chance of bodily survival. The warm tropical waters accelerated decomposition. Human remains sank quickly, unlike lighter aircraft pieces with trapped air that allowed them to float. And many marine predators roamed the depths long before currents could have carried remains to shore. We must accept reality, one oceanographer warned. After 3 years, no human body can be recovered or identified from the sea. But the families refused such answers. If toys survive, if wallets survive, why not our children? They cried. Meanwhile, scientists used debris locations to refine theories of the crash. Drift modeling traced how currents would have carried wreckage across the Indian Ocean. Simulations pointed consistently to a crash site farther south than first believed, around 200 kilometers below the original search area. This could explain why years of underwater missions yielded nothing. Yet testing this theory was painfully expensive. Each month of underwater search cost millions of dollars. Governments had already poured hundreds of millions into the operation without results. Critics grew louder. Are we chasing ghosts across the Indian Ocean? Perhaps some mysteries are destined never to be solved. By 2018, the tide of new findings had slowed. The last confirmed fragment appeared in South Africa in December 2017. In total, 33 pieces of MH370 had been retrieved. It was only a sliver of a Boeing 777 weighing 150 tons. And the haunting question lingered: where are the rest of the fragments? Do they lie together on the seabed in one compact grave, or scattered across thousands of square kilometers of ocean floor? The debris on distant shores answered some questions, but birthed so many more. They confirmed that a catastrophe had indeed occurred, but they revealed nothing about its cause. The most critical part of the aircraft, the cockpit with its black boxes, has never been recovered. Only those recorders could tell the true story of what happened during the final hours of Flight MH370. The discoveries of Wreckage transformed the protocols for searching missing aircraft. Now, in any oceanic disaster, coastlines within 1,000 kilometers are immediately monitored. International databases catalog every found fragment. Locals are trained to recognize aircraft components. New methods of drift analysis have been developed, but the deepest lesson brought little comfort. Even in an age of satellites and supercomputers, the ocean can still swallow a jetliner so completely that only scattered fragments wash ashore on distant beaches. MH370 had become a ghost, surfacing piece by piece across Africa and the Indian Ocean islands. Each fragment was like a letter from the other side, a message from those forever lost to the depths. The sea surrendered its secrets reluctantly, one broken part at a time. But the core mystery, what truly happened to 239 people on that fateful night, remained sealed in absolute darkness. The Wreckage stood as the last witnesses of tragedy, but they spoke only in the language of metal and plastic, a dialect that could not be translated into the vocabulary of grief. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, 53 years old, 18,355 flight hours, a spotless reputation as a professional. By all accounts, the last man one would ever suspect of mass murder. Yet as other explanations fell away, investigators began to focus on him as the central suspect. What could drive an experienced pilot to turn a wide-body jet off course and into 7 hours of silence, flying into nowhere? Investigators dug into his personal life, searching for motive. In the months before the disaster, Zahari had endured a painful divorce. After 35 years of marriage, his wife and children left him. He lived alone, isolated from family. There were political factors too. Zahari was an outspoken supporter of opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim. On the evening of March 7th, just hours before the flight, Anwar had been convicted on a 5-year prison sentence widely believed to be politically motivated. Coincidence? Or the final blow to a man already weighed down by despair? Then came the most ominous clue of all. From Zahari's home, investigators seized a flight simulator. The FBI restored deleted files and uncovered a flight path eerily similar to MH370's final route. The program began in Kuala Lumpur, arced out over the Andaman Sea, and ended in the remote southern Indian Ocean, precisely the area where the jet is believed to have gone down. Was this a blueprint for mass murder, a practice run for ending hundreds of lives, or simply one of many exercises a pilot might load into a simulator? Opinions split sharply. Some experts saw the deleted data as chilling evidence of intent. Others pointed out that Zahari's system held hundreds of scenarios, including routes to Antarctica and the North Pole. Pilots often simulate improbable conditions to test their responses, colleagues argued. It was training, not a secret plan. March 7th, 2014. Zahari spent the day quietly at home. He saw no friends, skipped the gym, attended to ordinary chores. Neighbors remembered him watering his plants in the garden. Was it a routine rest day before duty, or a man's unspoken farewell to life? Psychologists noted a troubling pattern. Suicide victims often spend their last days in calm preparation, tying up loose ends, creating a false air of serenity. That evening, Zahari sat down to watch the news. The broadcast showed the conviction of Anwar Ibrahim. Neighbors recalled hearing Zahari shouting inside his home that evening, though no one could make out the words. At 10 o'clock that night, the captain left for the airport. On the way, he stopped at a gas station and bought a bottle of water. Security cameras captured an image of a calm man, showing no signs of distress. His final posts on social media were equally unremarkable. Shared political stories, photos of airplanes, casual well wishes to friends. After official government search efforts ended in 2017, independent investigators stepped forward. Among them was Blaine Gibson, an American who spent his own savings funding expeditions to the shores of Africa and Madagascar. "Families have a right to know the truth," Gibson said as he walked hundreds of kilometers along remote tropical beaches searching for fragments of wreckage. And his persistence paid off. More than half of the officially confirmed pieces of MH370 were found by him. Yet the ultimate goal, the cockpit with its black boxes, remained elusive. The Malaysian government even offered $70 million to anyone who could find the main wreckage, but the ocean refused to yield even against such incentives. By the 2020s, new tools joined the search. Artificial intelligence was harnessed to scan terabytes of satellite imagery, hunting for anomalies on the ocean floor. Machine learning algorithms processed sonar data, isolating signals that might indicate wreckage. Neural networks simulated ocean currents with unprecedented accuracy. And yet, even AI proved powerless against the mystery of MH370. "The ocean keeps its secrets," one researcher sighed. "We build machines that can beat humans at chess and Go, and still we cannot find a single plane." Drift analysis of the debris sparked new theories about the crash location. Oceanographers built detailed models of currents, winds, and temperatures, attempting to reconstruct the wreckage's journey. Some experts argued that the jet had crashed far to the north of the original search area. Others pointed again to the seventh arc, mapped from the final satellite handshake. British engineer Richard Godfrey presented a revolutionary new theory. Using data from the global amateur radio network WSPR-net, he calculated a specific crash site, 33 degrees 30 minutes south, 95 degrees 20 minutes east. It was the first analysis to point to precise coordinates, but there was no money left to test his model. Governments had already spent over $200 million on the search. None were ready to commit more. In July 2018, the Malaysian government published its final report, a document almost 500 pages long, the product of 4 years of investigation. The central findings were careful but unsatisfying. The plane had deviated from its route intentionally. Its communication systems had been deliberately switched off. Flight continued for 7 hours after radar contact was lost. The aircraft entered the southern Indian Ocean, but the report could not say why. For the families, it was yet another cruel blow. 4 years of work, and you cannot tell us what happened to our children, angry relatives demanded. The report named no culprit, offered no clear motive. MH370 officially remained an unsolved mystery. The only certainty left was change. The tragedy forced aviation authorities worldwide to implement new safety measures, regulations written in the shadow of a ghost plane. The tragedy of MH370 forced the entire world to reassess aviation safety. The International Civil Aviation Organization adopted new global standards. Aircraft must now transmit their location data every single minute. Cockpit crews can no longer disable communication systems manually. All oceanic flights must be tracked by satellite. Black boxes are required to operate for no less than 90 days. These measures promise that no plane will ever vanish again the way MH370 did. But for the 239 lost souls, these reforms came far too late. 10 years after the disaster, the essential questions remain unanswered. Who diverted the aircraft from its course? Captain Zahari remains the primary suspect, but no conclusive proof ties him to a deliberate act. Why did the jet fly for 7 silent hours into the ocean? If it was suicide, why not crash immediately? What happened to the passengers during that time? Did they remain conscious, or were they already gone in a depressurized cabin? Where exactly did the plane come to rest? Debris drifted across oceans, but the fuselage has never been found. Why were no human remains ever recovered? Even after years, the ocean should have surrendered something. In 2024, the MH370 case remains officially open, though no active search is underway. Malaysian authorities say they are ready to resume investigations if new evidence emerges. In the meantime, the families have created a memorial fund to support independent research. Every year on March 8th, they hold ceremonies in memory of the victims. Some relatives still cling to hope. As long as no bodies are found, there remains a chance they are alive. But most live with the heavy acceptance of loss and the even heavier burden of uncertainty. MH370 endures as the greatest aviation mystery of the surveillance age. In a world where every person carries a GPS tracker in their pocket, a jetliner with 239 people disappeared without a trace. The story exposed the limits of human knowledge. We can send machines to Mars, but we could not find a Boeing in Earth's oceans. We can create artificial intelligence, but we cannot decode the choices of a living pilot. MH370 became a modern Flying Dutchman, a phantom ship that vanished into the mist, never to return home. Perhaps its secret will never be revealed. The ocean does not easily give up its mysteries, and time erases the traces of human tragedy. Yet the memory of 239 souls lost that night lives on, in the hearts of their loved ones and in aviation history, as a reminder of both the fragility of human life and the vast unknown still surrounding us. Flight MH370 began as an ordinary journey from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. It ended as one of the most haunting enigmas of our time. A story of how, in an age of constant connection, it is still possible to vanish completely, leaving behind only questions with no answers. Somewhere in the depths of the Indian Ocean lie the wreckage and the truth, but the sea remains silent, guarding its secret beneath 4 kilometers of black water, beyond sunlight, beyond human reach. MH370 disappeared from the skies, but it survives in memory, as a symbol of the unknowable and the unexplained in a world we thought we had already mapped. Thank you for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments.